Hello everyone, it's Malcolm Boudin here from MNB Networks. Today we're going to have a quick discussion about how to deal with conflict between teams. And then I'm talking about it from the networking perspective. So this is not a workplace advice video. It's talking about when you're in the network team, you might be a different part of the network team from someone else. There's lots of different opinions about how to do something. Some of the ways that it can be dealt with and some of the ways that it probably shouldn't be dealt with, but it happens. So this is more of a real life, like everything that we do at MNB Networks. We're not sugarcoating anything. We're telling you what can happen in real life when you're designing networks and there's different opinions between different teams about the process that should be followed or something like that. Okay, so let's say that there's a scenario. Okay, there's a scenario which is a problem. Okay. Now let's say this problem has been going on for 2 years. And one team is dealing with the problem and trying to resolve it for 2 years. Put the arrow back there. Okay, but that team is unable to solve a problem. So we then have a situation where another team is brought in, where I'll mark them in blue, who might be a bit more specialised in what the actual thing is. But it's not really so much that they're more specialised, it's more to say, for example, let's get a fresh pair of eyes on this. And it's always human nature to automatically jump the gun and say, well, why are they bringing in someone external, or why are they bringing somebody from a different team when I know how this works and how this is solved anyway? So the reason for that is because it's the same way with learning. If you're learning something new and you sit there staring at it for 20 hours, you're probably going to get to this stage at some point within that 20 hours where you're not actually taking anything in. And if you're also going at a problem non-stop for 2 years, which is no doubt going to be a complex problem, and I've been here myself, where you're agonising about the resolution, you think that it might be this, and then you think that you're onto something, and then you implement it, and it looks like it's working, and then the next day you come in and you're like, nah, it's not working. Okay, so some of the things that we can do is bring in another team. It doesn't matter whether it's external, it's a different part of the organisation, even if it's not a networking team, it might be a security team or an app team or something like that that see something that might actually point you in a completely different direction. So what happens here is that the team that was trying to resolve it in the first place, they attack this team, who then stand up for themselves but try to be neutral initially, but then it just escalates into this chaos where the whole thing is actually not even worth continuing with, but it probably does, just because there's not any kind of like process in place to actually solve the problem. So what would my suggestion be in this case? It's always, I would say, if something's going on and on for like 2 years or whatever, like a long period of time, it might be 3 months, it's relative to the actual problem. My recommendation would always be to bring in somebody to own the process. So you need an owner of the problem. So somebody to own the problem. from the resolution side, but you also need somebody to own the problem from the customer or whoever is flagging up that there's actually an issue in the first place. Okay, so what they need to do is have good dialogue. Good dialogue. And a relationship. I obviously mean a working relationship there. Okay, and then what we then need to start thinking about doing is to say, okay, before I can start fixing the problem for you and saying, here you go, you need to define the problem. Define the problem. So what do we mean by that? We mean something like replicate it. Replicate the problem. Agree the test processes or the testing. Agree success criteria. And then also highlight constraints. Constraints. So constraints may be things that are known about by the customer that may block the success of whoever the resolution owner is. So the resolution owner, just for clarity, might be, again, an internal team, it might be an external consultancy, it might be a third party in a completely different area that's brought in. So once we define the problem, we're kind of like at an amber state, and when we've defined the problem, it kind of gets thrown back over the fence to the problem owner, and the problem owner then has to come up with proposed solutions. So you've got proposed solution 1, let's say, solution 2, and then solution 3. So once we have the 3 proposed solutions, we have to say, well, what are the pros and what are the cons of this? We have to say, what are the pros and what are the cons of this? And we have to say, what are the pros and what are the cons of this? Once we know the pros and cons, the owner of the problem, okay, needs to make a recommendation. So let's say recommendation, and they should be confident enough that in the recommendation is going to be good enough to fix the problem based on all of this stuff that has been gathered. So they give the recommendation back to the owner of the problem, and then based on the requirements which have been fed into defining the problem and then the requirements and all that kind of thing, they're either going to go yes, which should probably be in green, just like easy like that, and say proceed, or they're going to shut it down immediately or find a problem for every solution. So they're going to go, that one's not good enough, that one's not good enough, and that one's not good enough. Now, the hardest question to answer in network design, in my experience, is why. And when you ask why, it opens up a whole other conversation. When you open up a whole other conversation, that's something that then escalates potentially, or it closes off the conversation. And for me, this process which I've described, the easiest question to or the easiest way to quash things, if somebody is being a bit of a pain and it's getting a bit political, going, that's bad, that's bad, that's bad, and you go, what about solution 4? And they go, that's bad as well. Ask them why. Why? 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 And sometimes there will be valid reasons, and sometimes there will not be valid reasons. But the other thing that I would also suggest to you is stay neutral. Stay neutral. Stay calm. Be professional. Be professional and always respectful. We can have all these things happening on the screen that I'm now highlighting in blue. All these things can be going on with different answers from different people with different opinions, but it's possible to do this by staying neutral, staying calm, being professional, and staying respectful. And I think that sometimes it's always good just to have a little reminder of this, myself included, when you're having conversations about network design. I hope this is a little bit of a different kind of video for you, but you enjoy it anyway, and hopefully it shares a few nuggets with people who are kind of just entering into network design and getting into debates and things like that and wondering what on earth is this all about. It happens, it'll always happen, and it's how you adapt to the circumstances that really matters in respect to your reputation. Okay, thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I hope it's helpful, and I wish you all the best in your endeavours in your career. Cheers.